Hey guys, welcome back to New World Carpentry Solutions. In this video, we're going to be prepping to fill a few cracks and knot holes with some casting epoxy. This one actually allows you guys to pour up to 3/8 of an inch thick, so it works perfect for knot holes like this. So I'm going to show you guys my process for getting it done. One of the first things I want to do actually is just show you guys some of the holes that we have to fill. You see this is actually a book match panel, and it actually has the mirror of the same two knots on both sides of this board. Some of them do go all the way through. The other, couple of the holes I need to fill don't. But again, for preparation before you go into filling epoxy, you want to make sure that you have a watertight seal. So either you have to build an entire mold, but in this case, I'm just filling cracks and knots. All I have to do is use some tie-back tape on the back side to make sure that none of the epoxy is able to leak out. But it's extremely crucial to make sure that you smooth out all of your tape and don't leave any air bubbles. Because if there's an air bubble, that's a place for the epoxy to leak, fill up, and then eventually work its way through the tape. So make sure you smooth all the tape out after you spread it, having everything nice and tight and sealed to the wood. That way you know you're not going to have any type of leaks. There's a leak with an epoxy like this, because the epoxy is pretty much thin like water. If it does have a place to leak, it will actually leak all the way out of the mold. It's not, or in this case, the tape. So with any type of epoxy, it's really important to make sure that, again, there aren't any leaks before you go through and start pouring. And with any epoxy project, it's extremely important that you actually grab the right types of epoxy. There's several different kinds, starting with like a quick set epoxy. Those are typically adhesives. They dry anywhere between 10 to 15 minutes, and those are really meant just to glue parts together. And then you get into tabletop or coating epoxy. Those ones are really meant just to apply a finish. They're normally self-leveling and they dry the next fastest. But again, they're not really meant to pour any type of actual thickness. It's really just meant to give you a nice film finish on top of a project. And then after tabletop epoxies, you get into casting epoxies like I'm using here. These allow you to pour up to 3/8 of an inch thick. And again, from my understanding of how this works, let's say you had a slab that was 2 inches thick and you had a gap that ran down the middle of it. And you were wondering if you can use this casting epoxy to fill that void. As long as the gap is not wider than 3/8 of an inch, even though it's 2 inches deep, it is the same as pouring a 3/8 inch mold for, a set of coasters. Even though the coaster is 4 or 5 inches wide, you still can pour 3/8 of an inch thick and it won't overheat, because the casting epoxy, it's about how much epoxy is actually poured into the mold per volume. So filling the gap that, again, is maybe a 1/16 or 1/8 of an inch wide, but it is 2 inches deep, you still can use a casting epoxy for that. I hope that makes sense. But anything like a river table, or anytime you're actually pouring a large volume where it's also deep and wide, that's when you might want to get into actually using a deep pour resin. Those ones take a lot longer, roughly about a week or so to cure. This casting epoxy is, I believe, about 24 hours, 12 to 24 hours. So this is, again, ideal for knot holes. Deep pours for river tables and things like that. And also, another key tip, I make sure I clamp these down, because they're only 1/2 inch thick, so I want to make sure they don't cup or bow throughout this actual curing process. There's a lot of heat built up in the middle of the epoxy pour. So just to avoid any type of hiccups, or like me coming out here the next day and everything's cupped upwards, clamp them down to a nice flat surface so that I can alleviate those problems. This has already been sitting for about 8 hours. It's still fairly tacky to the fill, so not quite ready for sand. But again, it's no longer running all over the place. I was blessed to have no leaks on this pour, so it's always a good thing. In the next video, we're going to delve into the preparation and finish of these boards. I'm going to sand everything down, as well as water pop in between the final grain. Because these are going to be an exterior door, I wouldn't want rain or them pressure washing the house to cause the door to get fuzzy. So I do plan to use an oil finish at the end of this. So if you guys have enjoyed this process, if you guys have learned anything, please let me know down in the comments. Leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.